Okay, Hava and Acacia and Toland. I'm going to read you guys a book. This is the Narnia book, remember? When Chewy's running around the room, she might interrupt us. This is Lucy Steps Through the Wardrobe. Okay? Once there were 4 children living in London whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. During the Second World War, because of the air raids, they were sent far away into the country to stay at the house of Professor Kirk. This story is about their adventure there. The first morning, the children decided to explore the house. It was a very large house, the kind you'd never seem to come to the end of, and it was full of unexpected places. One room had a suit of armor in it, another was all green and had a harp in the corner, and one room was entirely empty except for a big wardrobe with a looking glass on the door. "Nothing there," said Peter, and they all trooped out again. All except Lucy. She wanted to see what was inside the wardrobe, so she opened the door and stepped in. She left the door open, of course, because she knew it would be very foolish to shut oneself into a wardrobe. As she pushed aside the coats, she felt something cold and crunchy under her feet and something cold and soft on her head. "This is very odd," she thought. Then she felt something hard and rough against her face. "Why, this is just like branches of trees," exclaimed Lucy. A moment later, she found that she was standing in the middle of a wood at nighttime, with snow under her feet and snowflakes falling through the air. Over her shoulder, Lucy could still see the open door of the wardrobe and a glimpse of the empty room she had come from. Ahead of her, between the dark tree trunks, she could see a bright light shining far off in the forest. "I can always go back if anything goes wrong," thought Lucy. She began to walk, crunch, crunch, over the snow and toward the light. Hey, there's Mr. Tumnus. When Lucy reached the light, she found it was a lamppost. As she stood wondering what a lamppost was doing in the middle of the wood, she heard a pitter-patter of feet coming toward her. Suddenly, a very strange person stepped out from among the trees. From the waist upward, he was like a man, but his legs were shaped like a goat's, and he had hoofs instead of feet. He was a fawn. "Goodness gracious me!" exclaimed the fawn when he saw Lucy. "Good evening," said Lucy. "Good evening," said the fawn, giving her a little bow. "Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but are you a daughter of Eve?" "My name is Lucy," said Lucy, a little puzzled. "But are you a girl?" asked Lucy. "A human girl?" "Of course I am," replied Lucy, thinking his questions very strange. "I've never seen a son of Adam or daughter of Eve before," said the fawn. "I'm delighted to meet you. My name is Mr. Tumnus." "I'm very pleased to meet you, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy. "And may I ask, oh, Lucy, daughter of Eve," said Mr. Tumnus, "how have you come into Narnia?" "Narnia? What is Narnia?" said Lucy. "This is Narnia," said the fawn. "All the land between the lamppost and the great castle of Carparavel. And how have you come here?" "I got in through the wardrobe in the spare room," said Lucy. "Ah, Mr. Tumnus, if I'd only worked harder at geography when I was a little fawn, I should no doubt know about these strange countries." "But they aren't countries at all," said Lucy, almost laughing. "It's only just back there. At least, I'm not sure. It's summer there." Meanwhile, said Mr. Tumnus, "it's winter in Narnia, and has been for a very long time. We shall both catch cold if we stand here talking in the snow. Lucy, daughter of Eve, from the fair city of Wardrobe in the far land of Spare will you come and have tea with me?" "Thank you very much," said Lucy, who was feeling a little hungry, "but I can't stay long. I should be getting back soon." "My cave is only just around the corner," said the fawn, "and if you will take my arm, I shall be able to hold this umbrella over the both of us." And so Lucy found herself walking arm in arm with Mr. Tumnus as if they had known each other all their lives. They had not gone far before Mr. Tumnus led Lucy into one of the nicest caves she'd ever seen. There was a carpet on the dry stone floor and 2 little chairs. Lucy Lucy and the fawn sat in the chairs next to a cheerful fire and had a wonderful tea. There was a nice brown egg lightly boiled for each of them, then sardines on toast, then butter toast, then toast and honey, and finally a sugar-topped cake. See this stuff? Sugar-topped cake. See that, Hava? But when Lucy couldn't eat a bite more, the fawn began to tell her wonderful tales about life in the forest. He told her about nymphs who lived in the wells and the dryads who lived in the trees. He told her about the milk-white stag who would give you wishes if you caught him. He told her about the treasures of the red dwarfs who lived in the caverns far beneath the forest floor. Then he took out a little flute and began to play a tune that made Lucy want to cry and laugh and dance and go to sleep all at the same time. Finally Lucy said, "Oh, Mr. Tumnus, I'm so sorry to stop you, but really I must go home." "It's no good now," said the fawn, shaking his head at her sadly. Lucy noticed the fawn's brown eyes had filled with tears. Then the tears were trickling down his cheeks and soon running off the end of his nose. At last the fawn covered his face with his hands and began to sob. "Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy, "what is the matter? Aren't you well?" "Dear Mr. Tumnus, do tell me what is wrong." And she gave him her handkerchief. The fawn just took the handkerchief and kept on using it, wringing it out with both hands whenever it got too wet. Soon Lucy was standing in a damp patch. "Mr. Tumnus," shouted Lucy in his ear, "stop it at once. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. A great big fawn like you. What on earth are you crying about?" "I'm crying because I'm such a bad fawn," said Mr. Tumnus. "I'm in the pay of the White Witch." "The White Witch? Who's she?" asked Lucy. "Why, it is she who has got all Narnia under her thumb. It's she who makes it always winter and never Christmas. Think of that." "How awful," said Lucy. "But how does she pay you for? What does she pay you for?" "I'm a kidnapper for her," sobbed Mr. Tumnus. "I had orders from the White Witch that if I ever saw a son of Adam or daughter of Eve, I was to catch it and hand it over to her, and you're the first I ever met. And I pretended to be your friend and asked you to tea, and all the time I've been planning on waiting for you to fall asleep so I could go tell her." "Oh, but you won't, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy. "You won't, will you? Indeed, you really mustn't." "And if I don't," said Mr. Tumnus, "she's sure to find out, and she will be very angry with me and wave her wand and turn me into stone so that I shall only be a statue of a fawn in her horrible house." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy, "but please let me go home." "Of course I will," said the fawn. "I hadn't known what humans were like before I met you. I can't give you up to the White Witch, not now that I know you. But we must leave at once before she finds out that you have been here, he continued. "And we must go as quietly as we can. The whole wood is full of her spies. Even some of the trees are on her side." So Mr. Tumnus and Lucy went out into the snow. They stole along as quickly as they could, always keeping to the darkest places. At last they reached the lamp-post. "I can see the wardrobe door," Lucy said, feeling relieved. "Then go home as quickly as you can," said the fawn. And can you ever forgive me for what I meant to do?" "Why, of course I can," said Lucy, "and I hope you do. I hope you don't get in trouble on my account." "Farewell, daughter of Eve," said Mr. Tumnus. "Perhaps I may keep the handkerchief?" "Of course. Goodbye," said Lucy, running towards the wardrobe door. Soon, instead of rough branches brushing against her face, Lucy felt coats. Then she felt wooden boards under her feet instead of snow. All at once she found herself jumping out of the wardrobe and into the same empty room where the adventure had begun. "I'm here," she shouted. "I'm here. I've come back. I'm all right." Lucy ran into the hall and found the other three children standing there. "It's all right," she said. "I've come back." "What are you talking about, Lucy?" asked Susan. "Come back?" said Peter. "Batty," said Edmund, tapping his head. "Quite batty." So Lucy told them she had gone through the magic wardrobe into Narnia. There she found a fawn, where there was a fawn and a witch and a mysterious lamppost. But the other three didn't believe her, and strangely, when Lucy showed the others the wardrobe, all they found, to Lucy's dismay, was a perfectly ordinary wardrobe, with a perfectly ordinary back to it. After all, there was nothing Lucy could say to convince the others. After that, there was nothing Lucy could say to convince the others that she was telling the truth. But of course, Lucy was telling the truth, and although the children didn't know it then, their adventures in Narnia were just beginning. That's the end of that one. The next one is Edmund. There's the next one's over there. We'll do that in another one. I love you guys, and I miss you very much. I miss reading to you, and I wanted to read you a book. All right?